Our story begins here in this most simple and basic little area. Why, you won't find anything of interest out here. Oh, no, no, no. We're just humble people leading humble lives out here, homesteading away. Out on the farm with no suspicious activity, nothing at all. Just the trees and the family and our good virtue. And this is how the story begins. The story of the survey. Historic American Building Survey, in which, on the front end, America organizes and goes to the states, one by one, in the 30s and again in the 60s and 70s, and they document anything historic and old, whether it be a doorknob on an original home, or a cannery, perhaps, or an abandoned mine shaft. And they gather all these documents up, and they prune through them, and purge 9 of every 10, freeing those locations up to be demolished or destroyed or paved over or whatever purpose is deemed fit. And then they gather up the literature on all the remaining properties. They single 1 or 2 out from neighborhoods or towns, and they elevate a citizen, whether it be the chief almond salesman in the area, or perhaps a merchant that run a successful store, or perhaps a particular industry, and they will elevate this person and their property and preserve it. I write a narrative about the entire area through the lens of this one property, and then they'll wrap that back in these shrouds, and this actor, this character player, whoever they've selected, donates the property conveniently to the historic society or to the government, and then the rest of it can be burned and bulldozed and destroyed and wiped off the face of the earth, and you're left with this one property to represent the area so that you can see what your own history of your town and your people are. Isn't that so precious of them? How sweet of them to save this one little morsel. There'll be one for every town. One particular house where a movie was shot at, a particular memorable screenplay was filmed at, or perhaps it's a home of a prominent politician. Either way, just one will do. Just save one, just to give the illusion that they care about our history and our quote-unquote heritage, our cultural heritage. But the reality is that they can't wait to spend millions of dollars destroying them and wiping them off the face of the earth, because they are a reminder of what once was, and what that is greater than what we are today. And that's the secret that they can't have us know, for it ruins the illusion of progress, an illusion that I am glad to assist in the shattering of. Welcome to the Historic American Building Survey, Colorado. Colorado, like California, has engaged in this process where they, at some point in their history, they've switched over from the numbering system, the organizational system that they used to use. As you can see down here, this little number here, they don't follow it anymore. At least it doesn't lead you to specific properties. It'll lead you to a grouping of 1,000 properties that are not even from the same state. I've noticed this on the West Coast with California, and now Colorado, that it's particularly difficult to single out every property and to find out the information about it. I will do my best, but in the event that something is sort of skipped over without any information other than a cursory observation, then you'll know why. This is the Corey Hotel, actually known as the Plymouth Place. And this survived being destroyed, unlike the industrial buildings that surrounded it, of equal quality as far as brickwork and decoration are concerned. The architect was the firm of Marine and Norton, and they erected this in 1898, allegedly. Some of their members had been involved previously with Masonic temple construction and Brown Palace hotels and churches, so we know what organizations we're dealing with here. They just built things like the YMCAs and the theaters and the civic centers and all the other stage settings that were engineered to cultivate us as a culture, to get us to do what we're doing and to think the way we think, to behave the way that we behave, to value the way that we value. It's all been sculpted, and these organizations have been sculpted and crafted long, long ago in a meticulous plan, a long con, to lure humanity out of their gifts, to lure them away from their birthrights. And so, it is with a wrinkled, furrowed brow of suspicion that I engage these architects, if indeed that is what they are, or were. We're only given several pictures of this property, so I cannot show you the most significant feature, which is allegedly the ballroom. Described to be the most complete and perfectly appointed ballroom in the city, fitted with parlors, dressing rooms, a banquet room, and a kitchen on the first floor, decorated in Moorish style, electric lights, Moorish arches extending towards the ballroom, and for the exclusive use of the Capitol Hill 400, the most prestigious social group in Denver, the prettiest and most artistic private ball ever given in the city, etc., etc. Anything to make you feel left out. The sources of most of this information are from old pictures. True story. Along with a letter written by someone from the city council. 8 years after the construction of it, the ballroom, the prettiest and most amazing in the entire world, we're told, was removed after a mere 8 years. Now, the demolition of this building and the implementation of the plan to cut it in half of the road is an issue in Denver, and that was as far as 1970. So 50 years later, who knows if it survived? My guess would probably be, no. These are some of the hapless industrial buildings around it that were destroyed. The Typewriter Emporium, which no doubt had a lot of activity, violent, rough, very popular place, I'm sure. I can only imagine. This is the Glenarm branch of the Denver Young Men's Christian Association, aka YMCA. The building, it is the oldest building in the present-day Five Points Community Center complex, which at the time of the writing was 1977. The area was surveyed and may possibly be eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places, writes the article here. I'm sure by now it is. However, this building was scheduled to be destroyed in 1982 because of, well, let's see. What are the reasons listed? The old building is inadequate. That's what it says. The date of the founding of the Denver YMCA varies, sometimes 1885, sometimes 1875, sometimes 1877, sometimes 1864, which would be 6 years after the founding of the city. Don Kemp, the assistant general director of the YMCA in 1972, stated that the Denver Y was founded in 1875 by 7 young men at a meeting in the First National Bank building. The first department of the Denver Y was the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad Department, and we know that to be 1891. Now they claim that this is the new building that they constructed in 1924 after demolishing the old one. And so now they're going to demolish it now 60 years later because it's inadequate. And I find that to be rather implausible, personally. What could be inadequate about this? But who the fuck am I? Nobody. Interesting indoor pool here. This is Hotel Metropole, if I'm saying that right. It's either Metropole or Metropole. You tell me. Broadway Theater next to it. The historical narrative, as we're told, is that it was built in 1891 by Mr. W. M. H. Bush, a representative for the Windsor Land Company. Interesting name. The architect was a man named Colonel J. W. Wood, who supposedly had previously designed and constructed a number of hotels in Chicago and San Francisco. Distinguished guests and noted performers abound, of course, because every property has to have its own little star flair. Mr. Bush, who also managed the luxurious Windsor Hotel, was born in Ross County in 1841. He moved to Kansas at age 30, and then he moved to Central City, Colorado, opened up the Teller House Hotel, and began a prestigious career of hotel entrepreneurship and mining investment. For 25 years, he became a central character in the political, theatrical, mining, and hotel history of Colorado. Those things usually don't go together, but in the case of these actors, of course they do. Some of his endeavors included, like I said, managing the Windsor, the Brown Palace, and the Metropole Hotels. He served on numerous mining company boards of directors and managed the Broadway and Tibor theaters. He was also on the boards of the Denver Chamber of Commerce and the Denver Stock Exchange, as well as being the initial incorporator of the Denver, Utah, and Pacific Railroad. He passed away in 1899 after an extended illness attributed to acute appendicitis. Mining, hotels, theaters, politics, stocks, railroads, of course. You know, the usual passing fancies of a man in this era. There exists relatively little information about Colonel J.W. Wood. From newspaper accounts, he was possibly an architect and possibly a contracting agent in Chicago. The nature of his sketchy background allows a number of plausible theories regarding the selection of Wood to be put forth. One can surmise that Mr. Bush decided that rather than hiring a local well-known architect such as Frank Edbrook, he would contact a designer from the East, causing great stir of public interest and promotion for the hotel. Oh, designer from the East, you say? It also seems reasonable that being the astute businessman he was, Bush probably hired Colonel Wood at a very competitive price because he wasn't an architect and allowed the media to build his reputation to printed speculation. Of course. A very plausible theory. If Colonel Wood ever did any early work in Chicago, much of it was likely destroyed in the fire. In addition, if he had produced any later work in San Francisco, probably was also destroyed in the 1906 earthquake. How convenient. So this maybe architect, with a name like Colonel Wood, maybe did some work in Chicago that was likely destroyed by the fire. And then also, if he did any work in San Francisco later, it was probably also destroyed in the earthquake. These are all safe to assume rather than to assume that he didn't exist. Otherwise, how could this man put forth one of the most distinguished and ornate theaters in the country at the time? And the condition of this building, by the way, we're told at the time of this writing in 1977 is, it's to be demolished. That's the condition. So great job, Colonel Wood. You came from nowhere. You blew everyone's mind. You made the most ornate, amazing theater in the country, and to praise your legacy, or lack thereof, they're going to destroy it 60 years later. Nice. It's a 9-story building with a basement. There are Roman windows, or were, copper accenting, terracotta rosettes, etc., etc. The theater, which was destroyed in 1955, had East Indian motifs, deep olive green velour. It sat 1,600 people. The house light fixtures were plated in Roman gold. The walls and ceilings were frescoed in blues and sienna. The bridal suite, the gold plate Roman finish on the door and hardware, everything artistically frescoed, and we have to destroy it because why? All draperies throughout with the finest silk. The furniture was carved oak with leather trim, natural mahogany floors. Destroyed. All of it destroyed. Now I wonder why and whose call that was. And all of this back in the horse and carriage days. And the drawing is not here of it. Can't find it right now, but it's actually a 4-pronged double tower. These here, railings being added on later, you can see this is actually towers. So far, we're off to a maddening start, being shown delicious properties and being told that they have been razed to the ground for no reason other than taste or a parking lot. It tends to enrage me. God knows what's happened on this plane. God knows what's happened in this realm, and how beautiful this world could have been, and was, and could have been for us, but it was taken from us. Taken away, and I won't let it go. Not without a fight. This is the George Schleyer Mansion. So, you know what's coming up here. A great fiction about an amazing character who's engaged in every aspect of the business and life and love. In 1843, Mr. Schleyer went to Cincinnati, enrolled in a business course, employed by a hat house, and became acquainted with the process for the manufacture of hats. Traveled to New York City, 7 years later, employed in the manufacture of silk hats. 6 years later, moved to Milwaukee, had his own hat business, and earned the nickname of the Glad Hatter. Sometime around 1860, he returned back to Denver, invested in freighting, and until the flood of 1864 farmed on Cherry Creek. He began a career in real estate, was elected to the city council, and served as a city tax collector. Leased property to the People's National Bank Company, and helped settle and develop Denver in its early stages. On the way to Denver from Kansas, in 1858, he joined a group with other pioneers. They lived for months amongst Mexicans and Indians, peaceably. First built a log cabin in the only residential district in West Denver. During the winter, he acquired enough lumber to build a house and erected the first 2-story house in Denver. Then his group of 7 started back to the Rocky Mountains. They came to the foothills and they built the first bridge ever erected in Colorado. They charged a toll for anyone who crossed it. By the end of the first day, they made $600. Mr. Schleyer did not make friends easily, and his family was not active in Denver social circles. But through his adventuresome spirit and foresight we've heard about from third-party sources who died long ago, he helped promote the development of Denver, its industry, and its commerce. Mr. Schleyer seems to me like a fiction, and his house seems to me like a penis. We are told how fancy this house is, told of its multiple bedrooms, magnificent fireplaces, hand-carved doors, ballroom. There was all kind of stuff. Mr. Schleyer had modest taste, and an interesting little complex. Pretty marvelous mosaic work there. And hold up, god damn. Look at you. Where have you been all my life, honey? Now that, I take all you got. That's a fireplace for the ages. Maybe top 10. That might be top 10 tier fireplace. I'm so glad they didn't deface it by burning wood in it, like the modern heathens. Look at that. Serpents and swans on the staircase, which we're told proves that he was from Bavaria. To me, it proves nothing, except that there are serpents and swans on the staircase. Some naked children climbing about. Very dazzling place. Really is. Just incredible. Detail. This one really blends the line between me, at least in these photographs, of being comfortable and yet still opulent, Still very detailed and wonderful, but also still very comfortable. And wait a second. The fuck is that? What is that? I don't know, but I don't think I like it. And what a beautiful place. Too bad the chairs don't match. Oh, dude, I'm clowning so hard, dude. That was such a good takedown. Look, even he's laughing. He's like, bah! Even this pirate's like, introducing Hitler Room. See his little mustache, And he's like, "Hey, I'm not Hitler. I just got the same type of mustache." Well, that's all it takes, bud. That guy ruined that type of mustache for everyone. This delicious-looking place with this mansard roof that's way over the top for what it is, which is a brewery. Tivoli. This entire complex is the Tivoli Union Brewery in Denver. It's got a 100-year history, roughly. The development, really, of 3 different breweries is what this history consists of. Mr. James Good, who crossed the prairie, in 1859 with the first wagon load of hops for Denver's initial brewery, the Rocky Mountain Brewing Company. And that same year, Good became associated with the brewery's owner, Mr. Charles Endlick. Now, Mr. Good, known to have been a master brewer in Europe, ran the brewery during the 1860s. At this time, it was on the western shore of Cherry Creek in Aurora. I think they meant Aurora. Sometime during the middle of the decade, Mr. Endlich died and Good became sole owner of the facility. In 1870, he changed the name of the brewery to the Tivoli Brewing Company, named after the gardens in Copenhagen. And on 10th Street in Laramie, another brewery had popped up, the Milwaukee Brewing Company. And they used to put on shows and stuff, club shows and operas, and it was quite popular with the people. The company constructed a new 4-story brick surface with tower and basement in 1890. The structure survives today as the most visually distinctive building within the complex. There's a 3-story connector between the turn hall, also constructed in 1890, most likely while the new tower was under construction. And of course, it's got the usual brewery symbols on it. A friend of James Good named William Burghardt owned the Union Brewing Company, which had occupied the site of the Milwaukee Brewing Company. If this is confusing to you, then you're listening carefully, because it's confusing to me too. And so where's this story going? Well, apparently nowhere. This was in the 70s, they said this place is out of business as of 65, and they're possibly going to turn into a student center, and yeah. And I mean, for this to be a brewery, it's just preposterous. I mean, come on. What brewery needs this? Roof? What brewery needs to be 4 stories? What brewery needs any of this? Especially when it's literally going to go out of business. Like, it's not even, I mean, who needs it? Do you really need your smokestack to be that fancy? Like, there's no way modern era people made this stuff. Why would they? What would be the point? We need to bring back our very accomplished mason for our chimney. No doubt it was converted into a brewery, but I die of my doubts that it was ever. These old breweries are always in these old buildings. And is it just because they're big and gutted and industrial? Maybe? Is it the part of town that they're usually in? They're usually in industrial parts of town. Is it because the rent's cheaper? Is it because they have a lot of drainage and equipment and things that make it just an easy transition? You know, it's hard to say. But nearly every brewery, is in an industrial or historical building. And look at the fanciness. Like, just the detail on the railing here of the stairs where the general public does not go. Just seems odd. I love this old sort of steampunk, the steam era. Looks so cool. So wheels and gears. And look, someone's stuck in the throat of this thing. It reminds me this time this ostrich ate this cup. Some of those African barks, and we watched this cup slide down the ostrich neck. And as a child, I thought it was hilarious. Such interesting machinery. What is this, a steam-powered? And as I speak today, they've actually closed the last steam-powered brewery in America as of today. Anchor Steam. Anchor Steam is no longer with us. It was the last one from San Francisco, 1894, I believe. It never stops. The slow death march into oblivion, into forgetting all this, marches on, slowly but surely. And I weep for that world. Anyways, where was I? This here is what they are calling the 31st Street overflow structure. That's right. This tunnel, which mirrors very similarly to tunnels I've seen in the Czech Republic, of all places. This is an important part of the sanitary engineering system, we're told. Like most pioneer towns, Denver was without an underground sewer system for the first primitive years of its primitive existence. What existed was primarily surface drainage. It wasn't until 1873 that discussion for a general sewer system began. Until then, people pooped on the street. This went on for almost 3 years before the need for such a facility was accepted. H.C. Lowry, the city engineer, planned the first system and oversaw much of its construction. However, the rapid growth of Denver soon made it obsolete, we are told. The original system had to be greatly amplified. The key was an outlet sewer. This line would have to be large enough to carry all the sewage from the entire system. There would have to be provisions for handling stormwater runoff. And it is that reason that led to the construction of the Delgany Street Public Sanitary Sewer. Built in 1892, a 4-foot square temporary wooden flume carried the flow where it emptied into the river at the cost of $159,000, $325.60. Most of the 19th century, sewage disposal could often be summed up as, out of sight, out of mind. Most systems were designed to dump into the nearest waterway, and as far away from the nice parts of town as possible. For Denver, this meant dumping all the sewage into the South Platte River, which prompted a contemporary historian to remark that this small and often attenuated stream will presently be unable to move the discharges from the growing city, and thus compel the adoption of other methods of sewage disposition. Indeed, Platte is destined to soon become a most disreputable waterway. It would be almost 40 years after those words were written before something else was done. So, as Denver continued to grow, the solution to the increased sewage problem was seen to be to carry it further away from the town before dumping in the river. This sewer extension was designed to carry the flow on downstream from the termination of the original Dugganey and dump it into the Platte about 46th Street. Population here was more sparse, 8,290 feet long, constructed in a standard manner of 3 rings of brick set in a rubble cradle resting on a concrete base. The sewer was completed on June 13th, of course, and has continued to serve Denver well. And if I'm being honest, something about this doesn't seem right. This very complex brickwork here, spiraling when you have concrete available, I do not see the need for this. And I don't see, if this were filled with sewage for 50 years or whatever, why would the grout lines even be visible? It would be blackened. A small amount of standing water in an old pipe will blacken, and I just don't see that happening here. I don't know what they were used for. And then you've got this rubble here, again with the very sort of blockish look on some of these. Just seems like something's going on here. Like just sewage just falling down from this. Just seems too refined a little bit for that, and impractical. But what do I know? And here we go. This old world structure looking like a fort or a castle. And it's just some industrial wasteland, just some part of the industry. Just abandoned and misused for a while, as I feel we're about to find out. Wait for it. Here is one of Denver's oldest and largest metal fabricators. 1893, when Paul Richter and James B. Jackson organized this metal fabricating concern. 12 years later, they first operated from a site in Champa Street. Things like cast iron storefronts, metal ceilings, sidewalk grades, office grills, railings, letters, wire signs, fire escapes, stairs, fire doors, elevator cars, and enclosures, wrought iron and steel vault fronts, things like that were fabricated here. Standard stock shapes shipped directly from Eastern Foundries by rail. Mr. Albert Fish acquired control of the ironworks. Mr. Fish had been associated with 2 major fabricators in his hometown of St. Louis. Here he served this new one until his death in 1947. World War I and the accompanying anti-German national climate prompted Jackson Richter's board of directors to rename the company to the benign Midwest Steel and Iron Works. This one was allegedly built in 1930 by Roland L. Linder, and they've been retroactively credited with 30 such bridges in the Colorado County road system. During the war years, they were plentiful, awarding them contracts for a number of military installations, the Navy, etc., etc., etc. The hexagonal entry tower with an elaborate ornamental iron window grille, which once had a griffin over the entrance. It was removed in 1983, so no griffin for you. An unusual battle deck design. No doubt this repurposed building was not intended to be an ironworks. Here it sits boarded up, and there's no further information about it. And in compliance with Section 800.4 of the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation Regulations, as we found in California, the effects of a proposed walnut viaduct on the Midwest Steel and Ironworks complex were evaluated, and the viaduct will adversely affect the Midwest complex by requiring its entire demolition. So that's why the recordation was prescribed to mitigate this finding. You get it? It's going to demolish this wonderful old world building and complex to put a viaduct in, slice of your history, and to make it all better, to mitigate the loss. They're gonna give you a nice little write-up and some bitches. Gee, thanks. This here is the Tears McFarland garage. That's the side of it. That's the back. That's all you get. Oh, and it is associated with this here. But you're not allowed to get any info about that either. So you can speculate about these basement windows all you like. You will get no confirmation. Not from this survey, anyway. Maybe if you've been following this channel long enough, you recall sometimes slabs of rock that have the stripes through them. Next time we see that, think of this. Tell me if you think that's related. Or am I just off me rocker? Good God! There it is in the background, like a massive electrical component jutting out into the sky. Shall we approach? But first, look! An ancient Greek colonnade! What on earth is it doing here, in this mining town? Well, this outstanding building happens to be in Denver's nationally renowned Civic Center. The present owner is the city of Denver, and it is still used as it was planned some 50 years ago. Amazing what they did 50 years ago. Look, 100 years ago by today, the site purchased in 1911, and the buildings on the site were burned to the ground. Finally, December 31st, 1928, bids were finally accepted. The official groundbreaking ceremony took place in 1929, with Mayor Benjamin F. Stapleton turning the first shovel of dirt. A great day was had by all. The actual excavation started in 1929. The cornerstone was laid, first floor, laid by the most worshipful Grand Lodge of Colorado. And of course, no courtyard under the jurisdiction of our overlords would be complete without the ubiquitous horse statue. And of course, that thing. But why stop there? Cowboys and Indians, ah yes, of course, in this old mining town. It's so primitive. Just look at it. I bet they didn't have toilet paper. Phrasing. And this whole building is so over the top. It is actually maddening. Yes, the Taurus. I see. From the jaws of lions, indeed. And inside, are we surprised to find the same symbolism? No. The same swastikas? No. Here's where they play mahjong. They do that in the morning, so. And we are told that these are the tallest travertine monolithic columns in the world. The courtrooms are trimmed in stone from Italy. The office is made of Tennessee marble, gray Vermont marble for the baseboards, black and gold marble from Italy. Spare no expense, especially with the 26-foot high and 13 feet wide bronze doors cast for the main entrance, and they are the largest in the world. The bell inside of the tower here weighs 5,000 pounds. Donated by the late Mrs. Kate Spear, in memory of the man who was the early driving force behind Denver Civic Center, her husband, Mayor Robert Spear. Wow, what a real treat, and also what a real impossibility. Now this here is the Central Presbyterian Church on Sherman Street. Another impossibility. The church is enormous, including the basement, and of course looking like it goes down another 7 feet in order for it to be symmetrical. Before this, they had to use a rented house. Cornerstone laid 1891 and finished in less than 1 year. What amazing men they must have been. And look at those windows, so practical and functional. Of course this is a mining town church, and not from some prior empire. Why, it's easy to imagine them doing it. And that's interesting. Curious, isn't it? And this was cross. Or the Knights Templar. Is it just me? Is that cross upside down? But that thing, hand-carved, like, and the organ? What a ridiculous building. Nice. Real nice. In every sense. Unbelievable. Such a wonderfully over-the-top building, packed full of symbols that mean nothing. To modern Americans, that is. But weirdly enough, it meant something to the same people who lived here. Just look at it. Definitely from the same people. I can tell. The construction standards are the same. Look. Here, and then now here. Do you see? Look. And then look. Same face, see? This guy's just like, hey, fuck you, bro. Get the fuck out of here, bro. I'm fucking trying to bang my wife in here, dude. Dude, I can still see you, bro. Fuck off. Get out of here. Dude, I can still see you, bro. Fuck you. Fuck you, bro. Get the fuck out of here, dude. You. Fuck you. Been a while since I've been cussed out by a house. I miss it. I don't think I can go from first class to coach like that. So we're going to have to tackle this miner's cabin another time. I changed my mind. Upon closer examination, I can't seem to find anything about this miner's cabin, so we'll go ahead and give it the old flip. This is the Hot Springs Lodge in Glenwood Springs in Garfield County in Colorado in the United States of America in the Earth system. No further questions. No further comments either, because there's no further information. That's all I'm given. Although I do see a couple of nudie butts here on the diving board, so I do have a comment. My comment is dangly parts. Next up. This is the same lodge, but from the other angle, looking much more like a castle to my Brian. Like, for example, let's say you take this part away of this here building. Now you get the idea. And this part, and also this part. And let's say you were to draw a little castle top like that. You leave this like this without putting a roof on it. And you see, you have a castle. Or an ice cream cone sundae. Ooh. Looking much more like a castle with a roof added later than a lodge for hot springs. But I mean, who am I? No, and that's correct. This is the Shoshone Hydroelectric Plant Complex. But this is all about the power plant and the accompanying buildings, which has provided power for the citizens of Colorado for more than 70 years of uninterrupted service. Generating power, transmitting over the mountains to Leadville and to Denver on a 90,000-volt transmission line, baby. As of 1978, the line was still in service. One of the earliest hydroelectric plants of any consequence built along the Colorado River, a remarkable engineering accomplishment in terms of the physical difficulties encountered and the scale of the undertaking. Construction begins in 1907 for this diversion tunnel, and it took 2 years. It was 13 feet high and 17 feet wide. As of 1978, the dam continued to serve its original purpose of deflecting water from the Colorado River into the diversion tunnel. Most hydroelectric plants, in this country at least, they need a stored capacity of water, like a reservoir or a natural lake, as a source of power rather than the normal flow of a river. However, here at Shoshone, the river backs up behind the dam, creates a pond, which eliminates daily fluctuations in the water capacity. Construction of the power plant itself appears from early photographs to have been completed around 1909. This place employed about 1,000 to 1,500 men. The power company provided housing, meals, medical care, post office, apartment units for married workers, even a school for employees' children. Many of the outbuildings have been torn down, guest houses and boarding houses and such, victims of the automobile industry and the widening of the highway, and quite a feat. There is not really much in the way of information here. Most of this report is photographs, various outbuildings and things like this. Gee, these look familiar. And aside from some kind of wonky elevation stuff going on here, this is based on these photographs. Tricky place to sort of analyze. The ruins are kind of suspect, but they're just concrete, so it kind of checks out. For once, we have something that's not suspicious. What is all this? What the hell's going on around here? Kind of looks like it, huh? This here's the old opera house, he said, continuing his tradition of adding the old in front of places he has no familiarity with. And there is zero information about this other than it was built about 1868. And its current owners are the Central City Opera House Association. And something happened to the flooring here, as it's rather crooked. Wouldn't you say? Or do you truly think they built this like this? No one's that stupid. Behold, a griffin! Weird they would choose to sort of zoom in on it, isn't it? I don't know what they were trying to shoot there. This cameraman must only have one eye. What are you, looking at this little fat naked babies here? You nasty, bro. More tomfoolery? Gold, you say? Even the bank teller windows look nice. Do you go back to the farm and just pee on the ground again? A random town hall with no number documentation, but rather ornate building materials and patterns for these show-offs. Kind of a ridiculous mix of this old, beat-up minor town crap and these glorious images from another world. They kind of just keep going back and forth as if we don't notice. And truthfully, they're right. We don't usually notice. But I'm not going to admit that. This is the Western Depot, Littleton, Denver. So the history of it is, this Littleton, Colorado, was a small agricultural community named for Richard S. Little, settled there in 1860. 1872, the town was platted for the first time, and the name became official. And this ran from Denver to Colorado Springs. Littleton just happened to be on the way. This was the third railroad in Colorado. Its founder, William Jackson Palmer, had plans based on his faith in the future possibilities of the area's untapped agricultural and mining resources. He wanted to found a fashionable resort in the Mineral Springs. And the first of his dreams were realized in 1871 when the Colorado Springs Company was formed and the railroad between Denver and the new town was completed. Many local dignitaries took the first train. Littleton's growth continued. Passenger service at this location terminated in 1967. And here it sits, devoid of all human life, at least for this picture. Somebody's paying for the power bills to stay. I see that light. It's a more Brian, but I can't be certain. This here is an alleged lime kiln near Morrison, junction of Highway 8 and Rooney Road. This is allegedly indicative of kilns used in the late 19th century lime burning industry. It's the most intact example of a lime kiln anywhere near the foothills near Denver. They're building a highway through here, or they were. The Federal Highway Administration is the lead agency of this proposed undertaking. Compliance with Section 800.3 of the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation Regulations, the effect of the proposed construction upon the kiln was evaluated, and recordation was prescribed. You know what that means. Goodbye, Mr. Lime Kiln. Goodbye forever. It looks like a little archway here, meaning this is not correct. Lime trade was huge in Morrison, as well as sandstone, gypsum, coal, and lumber, all sent to Denver by rail from this place. The deliberate burning of limestone to produce lime is almost as old as recorded history. Ancient Egyptians used lime mortar in the Great Pyramids of Giza. The Romans used lime in the Appian Way. Lime kilns are recorded in use in 184 BC. Greek architecture, Mayan, Inca temples, the Great Wall of China, lime plasters and mortars were used from the earliest of colonial times. This is 1440 this technique goes back to, so it's not new, guys. Calcination, we're told. See, what they do here is, now I'm not saying this is a kiln, I actually don't know, but if they were to use it as a kiln, they take limestone, they bring it up to the high temperature, and it drives all the carbon dioxide out of it, and it leaves calcium oxide or lime as a byproduct. They use this stuff for furniture, for cement, for purifying, sugar refinement, for flux in the smelting industry. They can take these rock-lined pits in the earlier days, and they throw limestone and wood, and as it burned, temperatures raised to the point of this calcination and it makes lime. When the kilns are above ground, with a lower chamber for burning the fuel and an upper chamber for heating the stone, it's a little more control, a little better quality. But each load is like hand stacked and roasts for days. It has to be cool and then unloaded again. And this is a very slow and very laborious process. So it's still primitive technology. This kind, you load from the top, it looks like, with like alternating layers of the fuel and the limestone. And they draw it out of the base through these large oven doors, making more room at the top, and then they dump more in, and the process repeats. Oh, you got food poisoning. Look. Blah, 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 blah. This guy's all crooked. He's got an eye here, right? A nose here. His mouth is like, Murr. This doesn't look like a kiln to me at all. This kiln, we're told, is built right beside an outcropping of limestone, 25 feet thick, 300 feet long, known as the Garfield Quarry. Morrison Stone, Lime, and Townside owned this company, a subsidiary of the Denver South Park and Pacific. Only operated for a few years before it was abandoned allegedly. All lime burning activity appears to have ceased around 1900. Maybe a shortage of wood fuel? Maybe pressure from the local tourist population, because it creates such clouds of smoke which constantly billow forth from the tops of these kilns. Or was it the Portland cement industry which began making significant advances? Or is it because technology advanced? Or is it all of those combined? You don't know. I don't know either. I don't even think it was a kiln. At least I don't think this, what's this got to do with it? That's interesting. Yes and no. Yeah, no. No. This is not part of the kiln. This is something new. Mighty proud of this bridge they look like they are. Wonder what's going on here, though. This one's terrifying. If you were to fall from that height, my god. That's kind of an eerie scene. Look, it's our game show for ghouls. Well, here's where you'll be sleeping, Jennifer. Dinner's at 8. Here it is. He's sulking. He's like, no one wants to play with me. Pick a different game, Jimmy. And look at the little girl in the bonnet contemplating suicide. Aw, it's so cute. Don't touch that. Interesting feats of engineering here. One wonders where the old construction project stopped and the new one began, if you know what I mean. Just an old innocent mining town here, sir. Nothing to see here, sir. We just barely scratching the surface, trying to eke out a little bit of a living out there. Town on the way to being incorporated, horse on the way to becoming a statue. Looks like things are lining up for this little place. Where were we? Oh yeah, past the dam, past the clam, past the lady with the hot jam. Hot jam. You know, someone once told me once that you know you're getting old or maturing when the idea of a Jam of the Month club sounds good. I don't mean like a music. I mean, you know, someone actually delivering different jams or jellies to your door, every month. That's when you know you're maturing. Said a very wise friend once. And honestly, the time I thought he was wrong. But he's right! Jam of the month sounds so great. Prickly pear, like jalapeno 1 month, like next month be like apricot and vanilla. I don't know. I mean, who says no to delicious jams? Put them on my mother. We are in the Silverton area, this very dumpy looking mining area that we're given as sort of a placeholder to be not suspicious, throw the dog a bone, if you will. See, nothing to see here, just a rusty old workbench. Go away. This is not a tower, it's a kiln, even though it's unusable. Trust us. And I don't believe I will. I trust nothing. I trust that y'all are some liars, because y'all done been lying to me. Y'all been lying to everybody about everything. Rather saggy looking, fascinating picture. I wonder what he was looking for. Is that a unicorn? Hold up. I thought that was just fantasy. I cannot tell if that's a unicorn or not. Stupid low-resolution photos. Oh, yep, it's only as a unicorn. I can see it now. This must have been the light was kind of funny. Well, there's a beauty. It's just a coincidence, I'm sure, that if this were to be, say, under a deluge, the mud that would run would build up in the back of the house and not the front and keep going downhill. You know what I mean? Like, that's just a coincidence. They happen to build it that way. It's not really a mud flood. Nothing has ever been flooded out, ever. We like making shit extra hard for us and digging in the bedrock, okay? Especially the more primitive tools, the more we like to dig. Is this a train in the middle of town? I mean, I guess that's not that different, but it does look weird. It's like in a parking lot. I would have thought this was sort of photoshopped. It's waiting patiently for valet, maybe. Here's the sign. You can't read it, but it says valet. These restaurants always do this on Friday night. I don't know why. And there it is. Waiting patiently. Or, maybe it's waiting for someone to put more track down, because I don't see any track. So I don't know what the fuck's going on right here. This is a weird situation. And this guy over here is like, waiting patiently in the crosswalk. Like, waiting for you to cross so I can go across the street. And it's like, dude, it's gonna be a minute. You better go around. I don't know. That's my interpretation of the situation. You do it. You come up with something. Do it. On the fly. Do it. Go ahead. Do it. You can't. You didn't. The city of Silverton, 1908. Got this here city hall here. And, Boy, I wish I could tell you more about this place, but I really can't. It's just got no information. A bunch of pictures, but it ain't got no damn documentation. I can't read nothing about it. All I know is that all these pictures was taken after 1933. That's what they say. They all say the same damn thing. After 1933. But no one knows. All right, hold up. We got one data page, y'all. One data page. And it says, they upgraded the bridge. Now, normally I'd feel like a failure. But I ain't no damn failure. And I'm gonna give you information. Well, what it won't tell you here, despite its secrets, like how it got these windows and what a building like this is doing in frickin' mining town. This was a booming mining town, we are told, in the 19th century with 2,000 residents at its peak. Today it's a popular tourist destination. Scenic beauty, outdoor recreation opportunities. It's in the San Juan Mountains, surrounded by stunning natural beauty. There's an Animas Forks ghost town and the famous $1 Million Highway. Also, the scene of important events during the Old West era. The infamous shootout on Blair Street. You know, those important events that broadcast over the world that when you actually get down to it are rather benign, like the insane story in Tombstone. My God, when like two people shot each other. It's basically not even a weekend in Chicago, and yet no one goes and says, "Hey, will you reenact that shooting that you did last week, gangsters?" Like they do in Tombstone. And this district is rather cool, but I wish I had some information about it, but you can see the old world influence all over. And really, kind of a cool place. I'm surprised at how many of these are still standing. Usually there's only a handful. Surprised that one's not still standing too. It looks permanent. Unlike some of these other ones, like this one. This one looks like it could fall down any minute. Wagon wheels, you know what that means. Fictitious. It's a stage, setting the tone, just like the cannons. Just gonna leave who just leaves a tire behind? It's not like wagon wheels can go flat. If anything, you take it along for firewood. Something you can't do with the tire. Well, you can, but it might be your last fire. Lots of little sleepy looking houses here. Lots of little historic, amazing properties. And I'll do the districts. That's another series, okay? I'm not doing the districts right now, okay? We've been all through this. Telluride is another town here, a little town in Colorado with a little history. And of course, they're under the water. You can't afford those, can you? You really can't. Here's the proper elevation. And the door, yeah, there you go. There's the door, I'm sure. It was meant to be like that. And somehow we're back here at the Tivoli Beer Brewery again. How? But I guess I'm not complaining because we get to see the inside. Oh yeah, I'm sure. This was really constructed to be a brewery with all this. Get the fuck out of here. That's cool. It's just sitting up in the attic. Bring it home to me. Or just a stage. Or just a big angry mouth going, "Mom, I'm telling." It's like my sister. Oh, interesting address. So what is it, family crest? Mm-hmm. G-unit. More like grand architect. I suppose it's gone on long enough for the day. We reached the end of my assorted set, and I can't squeeze any more blood out of this turnip. And so, with that being said, I will see you soon.